Hi everyone, welcome to the Ohio Adult Allies On-Demand Learning event titled Problem Identification and Referral for Youth-Led Programs. This on-demand learning opportunity is presented by Northeast Ohio Regional Learning Collaborative leaders.
Our names are Karen Lackey and Holly Jacobson, and we'll be facilitating today's learning event. The learning objectives for the webinar are for our adult allies to be able to define problem ID and referral and its growing role in a comprehensive prevention approach. Explore how problem ID and referral can intersect with any youth-led prevention strategy or activity, and identify useful policies, procedures, community resources, and important language necessary to support a foundation for problem ID and referral. As you'll see, a comprehensive approach includes all 6 CSAP strategies: information dissemination, prevention education, alternative activities, community-based process, environmental, and problem identification and referral. What we found is often problem identification and referral is overlooked. It's assumed it doesn't fit into prevention because it sounds a little bit different. And some people are intimidated actually by the term problem identification as well as referral. They don't feel it's in their area of expertise. So this makes problem ID and problem identification and referral one of the most underutilized CSAP strategies. The definition of problem identification and referral is to identify those who have indulged in illegal or age-inappropriate use of tobacco, drugs, or alcohol in order to assess if their behavior can be reversed through education. I can see where this sounds a little bit intimidating to some people, and it's why we're here to do a little bit more educating on this topic so you can all be experts by the time we leave. In our experience, what we found is this definition also often leaves something out. In youth-led programming, the problem of focus, or what youth choose to work on, is not always substance abuse. So when we are addressing and when we talk about problem ID and referral, it goes beyond the scope of just substance abuse in youth-led programming.
So how does problem ID and referral intersect with youth-led programs? So there are so many different ways in which these two can intersect, right? There's multiple ways in which the youth-led process encounters the need for understanding and how to use problem ID and referral. So if we go back to the basics of youth-led prevention and how do we truly empower our young people to create change, we have our main, one of our main tools that we use, which is a strategic prevention framework, right? So what we're going to talk about in the next several minutes is how does problem ID and referral align with this, right? So it can happen in every one of these different areas. So whether it's an assessment, capacity, planning, implementation, or evaluation, there are potentials for the need for problem ID and referral in any of these areas, especially as you're taking your young people through this empowering planning process to create that change. We also hopefully know the strategic plan map, right? This is one of the other tools that we should be using with youth-led prevention. And so what we're noticing is that, the young people are choosing their problem of focus, right? So they're choosing their problem of focus. They're, deciding what area they want to focus on. And so they're, similar to the SPIF, at any point during the planning process and using your plan map, you can encounter areas where you need problem identification or referral. Whether, we know it or not, we have to know that it's there and that we have to plan and prepare for it.
So now to make this a little bit more relevant, we are going to run through a few case examples of how this happens in some standard youth-led prevention activities. So what I'd like you to do just for a minute, I want you to take a look at that list and think about these activities. Is this something your youth-led group does right now? Is it something you can see them needing? Something you can see them planning, or a possible activity they may come up with down the road? So don't be afraid, but we are going to jump off right now and you're going to see our faces because we do not want to have this slide up for eternity as you're listening to this. So we are going to start off with the first one. We're going to go through the first 4. Holly's going to start out with the camp experience, and then we will jump in later go through our experience, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit about why, through our mistakes, really, you have a need to have policies and procedures and understanding of problem ID and referral. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. So yeah, so our first example that we have is overnight camp experience. So I'm sure many of you have either run camp, been to camp, are planning a camp, or maybe 1,000 different camps. And so one of the things that we have noticed is that that is a huge event or activity that young people do, where we absolutely have the potential of using problem ID and referral, right? So think about if you have, so specifically we have a camp that our countywide leadership team, YAC, runs. We invite middle school students, they come on in. Our high school students are the ones that create the camp, they develop the camp, they run the camp, and then they train the young people, the middle schoolers when they're there. And so one of the things that we've noticed is that they tend to form relationships and they bond with their, the older people, the high school students, bond with the younger middle school students. And so what they notice is that, sometimes they'd be hanging out or doing an activity and all of a sudden one of the younger students would share something. And the high schooler knew like, this wasn't right, something didn't feel right. I have to tell somebody I don't know what to do with this information. And so young people were really like starting to share information. One of the other things is like, what happens if you're at camp and you notice that, it's a 3-day camp and one of your young people is there with the same set of clothes for all 3 days, right? So there's a lot of differences, like how do we identify, like, what do we do about that? And so we realized that we had to really kind of create a whole comprehensive problem ID referral of how do we address these issues and concerns when they do arise.